so much. Hi, Karanjeet. I think we have I'm not sure if I can see all the other panelists in my view, but welcome everyone and a very good morning to all of you. It's an interesting topic, a topic with which we've been talking about not just recently, but for the last almost a year. If one looks at how 2020 went, all of us, there was no management theory, there was no scenario plan, there was no strategy. That had prepared us for what transpired in 2020. So anyway, here we are sitting on the 27th of February 2021, exactly a year later, and I welcome my fellow panelists Karanjeet, Chitbhanu and Ashish. Hi Ashish, good to see you again.
Hi, good to see you again. Hi.
Been a while. So I thought we have around 40-45 minutes. We'll keep it interactive, we'll keep it going. There are a set of topics that I wanted to cover, and as I thought, instead of me starting with some 5 minutes of monologue and sharing my thoughts, let's get the interaction going right at the start. I was thinking of structuring the questions or the broad, 3-4 areas that we'll talk about. One is obviously the big question that we all keep talking about, and all of us in the larger learning and development space or the people space is how has COVID really changed the way we are looking at learning? The obvious one is yes. Because blended learning and digital learning was there for a while, this has probably accelerated it. So I'll probably go around and seek your initial views on your own experiences in your organization and what you've seen in terms of how the pandemic in a way accelerated some of that and some learnings coming out of that. Because my own sense is, and I'm happy to hear your views on contrarian views as well, that some of these changes will stick. There will be a time when the whole world is vaccinated and we're all back to what used to be considered normal before March of 2020. But I think some changes will stick. That's one. Second is then, therefore, how does it change the way we're looking at, the topic is the new candidate. So, the new candidate, I would imagine, is in a way the new learner who is more empowered, has more access to learning material than ever before. I know I often, in my current role, of course, I look at people in HR for KPMG India. However, having worked with clients over the last 2 decades, one of the biggest challenges clients would say that our people are always on LinkedIn and other social media. Why can't we get them as enthusiastic about our learning management systems? Why don't they use our own internal systems that much? So the fact of the matter is that today we are all digital. So if it's all digital, how does that change the way we measure and the metrics? And I think the third big area, and we can debate that towards the end, is that this does present an interesting challenge, because in my mind, learning and onboarding and what we do through our programs is not just about skill building. That's how we're also onboarding people, aligning them to your value system, your ways of working, quote unquote, culture as a term that we often use. In a remote manner, and while we've been forced to do it over the last 1 year. But going forward, is that sustainable? Because humans are social learners. We like to connect, and so some thoughts around that. I would say those are 3 broad buckets that, and I leave it to you in terms of which one of these would you like to take up. We'll go around the room for a couple of times, and then we'll do some closing remarks. Sounds okay in terms of structure?
Sounds good, Sunit. Thank you.
Sure. So maybe I'll go in the order that we were introduced. So Karanjeet, I'll put you on the spot first and get your thoughts in terms of how has it been. Some experiences, some learnings from the last year as you've driven the L&D agenda in your organization. What are you seeing? What can you share with us?
Of course, and thank you, Sunit. It sets a broad context, and being very specific in the world of KFC, we learned a lot in the process. It's a journey, and I'm happy to share that we are able to partner with our employees and seek their inputs as well. So it's been a two-way communication. So the employees have come back and told us, this works, this does not work. We are so far away from our offices or restaurants. This is a better way of doing things, not a better way of doing things. And I think the key thing for us was just to listen more openly to the employees and understand where is it that they are coming from. So we revised our entire L&D strategy, not only basis the newer business models, but also how do we curate our existing programs basis the need, the accessibility, and the acceptability of the employees. Also, with lots of to and fro, we understood quite a few of the things. So we are fortunate as a country. It's a blessing in disguise that we do have internet across a majority of our cities across tiers 1, 2, 3, 4. We are blessed. Employees have come back and said, why do you want to talk about Zoom? Let's talk about WhatsApp, because I am more comfortable doing WhatsApp. In fact, they came back and saying, I'm so much used to Facebook, so much used to Instagram. Can you take my learning on through Facebook and Instagram? And we were trying to figure out, are we going to violate any IPRs or anything? So we said, let's stick to WhatsApp for a start, because it reaches across, everybody is used to it, and it is a known medium, a known channel. And I'm referring to the period from 25th of March 2020 way up to, let's say, 25th of September 2020. So in spite of the lockdowns, the regulations and everything, we were able to connect at least twice on a daily basis across our workforce. So what we also understood was this helped us to jumpstart our own digital learning agenda. That is there. Also, what we understood was that, employees are more than eager to share their experiences when they're sitting at home, share their own apprehensions as part of their own learning journeys. So very few simple things they would come back and say that, I'm happy you're sharing this. At least I can remember parts of the business, because staying away from the business for 3 to 5 months is not that easy. And more importantly, in the KFC setup, in the retail business, if you don't see your customer, how do you inculcate the hospitality behaviors and the norms around it? So when we introduced our playbook also, addressing the government lockdowns, the brand standards and everything, we also ensured that it is communicated in very small video-led snippets, all basis feedback from employees. So we did a very simple exercise, just going a little specific over here. We went back to the employees and asked them that how much of a video do you watch? And the target age group is between 22 to 28 years. And they just came back and said, any YouTube video, any Facebook video beyond 90 seconds doesn't work for us. We get switched off. We have very less attention spans. We said, well, thank you so much. Then this feedback corroborated with the feedback and research done by Google and YouTube separately. And then we said that, okay, whatever we do, because playbooks are huge, content is immense, we had to force ourselves, attune our mindsets to look at all our training programs into bite-sized modules. From there, we brought the videos down from huge 5 to 6 minutes. These are really huge videos. We brought it down to 1.5 minutes. Our target was 90 seconds. We were able to keep it up to 100 seconds. When we rolled it out through the playbook, the employees understood it. And best part is, even our partners, the businesses would come back and say, hey, can you give us also a sense that are these employees engaged with us or not? Are we building enough faith in them that, we want them to be with us, we don't want to lose them? So for us, it was a big blessing. We were able to connect, we were able to engage, and we were able to give that hope and faith to the new age employee, right? Who can really jump from one company to another and say that, we are there for you. So yes, we have also made a few mistakes. Yes, we have experimented a lot. And overall, if we've done 10 new different things, we got 6 or 7 out of them correct. 3 or 4, we couldn't get them right, but that's fine. At the end of the day, as far as the business is concerned, not only we were able to retain everyone with this engagement come learning come business relevant activity, we were also able to satisfy our customers basis their customer metrics, basis the customer feedback through social media, Facebook, Insta, and whatever feedback we got. And more importantly, from a business point of view, when we were expanding, we had so much of customer and employee feedback. I think that has really helped us from September onwards, even as we speak towards the last week of February. So we are still curating our L&D model. We are still going ahead and seeing what works, what does not work. However, employees have come back and said that, in tools like Zoom and MS Teams, you have separate breakout sessions. We try to do role plays, and on leadership development, we try to build more concepts on empathy, on listening. We try to attune the first-time manager of managers, more and more concepts to role plays. Now that feedback is coming that one advantage of digital is that we don't need to travel and see the entire body language. As long as you keep the video or the camera at least 6 feet away and then do the role play, we can see the complete body of the person and then conduct our role plays. And what we've understood from that, to conduct appraisals across a broader geography in India, we actually don't need employees to come over to offices. So work from home and working from office, it's a blended model. We are also coming in terms to it. And what we have understood is that it is an equal partnership with the employee and the customer and business, as long as it is listening to us, and more importantly, we are listening to the business. It's a very healthy partnership. So for us, a lot depends on what we want to achieve in objectives as well as in our profit measures. So from a business point of view, whatever we've done, are we profitable? Yes. Are we driving positive sales growth? Yes. And have we maintained our cost lines? The answer is absolute yes. There are definite 6-digit based numbers on which we are not only saving costs, but we are also profitable. So the strategy is working out as far as the business, employees, and customers are concerned. I address quite a few of your points, Sunit. Just like
No, absolutely, Karanjeet. But I think thanks to that, I would want to pick up 2 points that I really loved, and we'll come back to it once we've heard from Chitbhanu and Ashish as well. One is the fact that you actually listened, and you listened more. You changed the delivery mechanisms. You brought those 5-6 minute videos down to 90 seconds. I think so. Keeping the learner at the center. We talk of being human centered, but how often are we really instead of just pushing content down? And the second is that really the good news that all of this has helped you deliver those outcomes, not just maintain from a business perspective, but probably even have a higher impact. And you're carrying that on into other areas, like you're going forward in terms of even doing appraisals, etc. So some great opening points, Karanjeet. Thank you for that. I'll switch to Chitbhanu, and maybe Chitbhanu, picking up from some of the things that Karanjeet just said. Of course, sharing your experiences, sharing some of the key lessons learned. And I loved the point that Karanjeet said. It's not always, we may not get it perfect. And as none of us were prepared for this, so it's fine to say that we got 6 out of 10 right. 4 we'll fight another day and get those right the next time. So some reflections on your lessons learned. What did you see in your organization, and how are things now that we're not in the lockdown mode? However, we're still not back to the normal we used to be working in.
Sure, Sunit. Thank you. And Karan, first of all, connecting to some of the thoughts and the context in which you spoke, I and my wife are big fans of KFC and almost all the offerings. I can't tell you, how patiently I'm waiting for for us to be on the better side of COVID, and for us to have an opportunity to visit one of the restaurants. On a lighter side, one of my personal learning needs are, if I could know how KFC gets the chicken just right, I really would love to learn more about that. But sure. But on a more serious note, I think folks, I've seen majority of narrative around learning needs and our the lessons learned to be on how we have gone digital. How from predominantly being a physical-led learning model, we have gone digital, how tools, platforms have become more important. And with due respect to these, because I know these are important dimensions of the problem, but I think this is just one side of the problem statement. And frankly, the more we emphasize only on the platform and the fact that we have got digital, I think more we are only skimming the surface. One of my personal realizations at Razorpay, the organization where I work, and in general has been, I think the biggest thing for us to realize and accept is that the learning needs have changed, or at least the priority with which we look at our learning needs have changed. What do I mean by that? Let's go a little beyond the surface level observations. What has been the biggest difference that COVID has made? I think the 3 biggest changes or realizations that COVID has brought. First of all, resilience is very, very important. The folks who have been resilient through the process, who did not give up, who were able to stand emotionally strong, have come out more successful, stronger at the end of it. Second is the importance of compassion. I mean, let's forget about our professional lives for a moment. As individuals, I have tens and twenties of my friends who say that they have rediscovered their connections with their relatives, friends, families. The proximity with which they used to connect with their relatives has maybe trebled, during COVID. And they would not connect as much and with as much of emotion with their family, right? So the realization that compassion is very, very important for us as individuals and professionals, I think, is a big realization. And finally, the last one has been the importance of health. While I think it's an often abused term, but frankly, COVID has made me realize, and many people whom I speak with, that the more I understand my health and the more I focus on my health, the better I will be as an individual and as a professional. Right? Now, let me put it on an organizational context. How many organizations are now extrapolating this and saying, if this has been an important realization for an individual, maybe this is an important learning need for us as an organization. And hence, what kind of learning infrastructure, what kind of learning needs do we have to build to make a more resilient organization, to build more compassion across the organization, and to ensure that an organization we come out more healthy, more focused on our personal health. And I think at Razorpay we have done all of this. A lot of our learning curriculum, the way we used to prioritize it, has significantly shifted with a focus towards sort of these three pillars. And I'm sure so have a lot of other organizations. I'm only trying to bring this up because to me these have been most important. We have looked at external counselors, we have looked at external trainers who have come and who have advised our people on how to be resilient, more on the emotional side of it. I think COVID has sapped a lot of energy emotionally, physically from a lot of people. People are tired working from home. People are tired not having an emotional connect with people, and they're helping people realize this, accept this, and come out stronger. I think all learning interventions that go to some level of depth in this area have been successful. So we have partnered with organizations that are experts in behavioral sciences and that have helped our people realize, accept, and grow stronger around resilience. Similarly, around compassion, I think we today have a lot more open dialogue with our managers, with our leaders on how, what we call as the caring leader, how they can be more caring, how can they be more compassionate towards their people. And that does not mean we discount accountability anywhere, but what's the right balance between accountability and compassion? And then how we strike that right balance, keeping COVID in context, and how do we then train our managers around it has been another important realization. And finally, health and all aspects of health. I'm sure many people in the audience here would have heard about 7-8 months back, Razorpay completely re-engineered its leave policy, and we said it's today a holistic wellness program rather than just a leave policy. So it doesn't matter whether you have fever, you have cough, you have cold, or you are feeling emotionally down, or there's a problem in the family. All of this comes under the broad umbrella of wellness, and we want you to, in such times, take time off, feel better, and then come. We have spent a lot of time around learning as well to help people realize the importance of health. We have launched programs where we train people on yoga, physical fitness, emotional wellness, etc. And I think that has resonated with our people. We today see many of our people coming back and saying, what more can I do? You're organizing programs, but I'm busy with work. Can you convince my leaders that they need to prioritize this as much as my work delivery? And we are trying to see how we, without compromising on our delivery targets, how can we make more time, attention for programs and trainings related to physical and mental health. So Sunit, those have been some of my realizations, which I think are equally important.
Oh, I love the points about the fact that the learning needs themselves have changed, because when you're talking of the new learner, the new candidate, as the topic is, we have to look at the needs having changed. And yes, some of these, the pandemic made us realize this, and I would say that these could be one of the themes that stick beyond the pandemic. I mean, 2 years, 3 years down the line also, obviously, we don't have a crystal ball, but looks like that is going to be pervasive because people have been reminded of that. So thanks for sharing that. And moving from learning needs, and Ashish, pulling you into, you've been waiting patiently and coming to you in terms of, we've talked about, yes, what changed and the kind of programs and the outcomes that got delivered. Karanjeet laid that out very well. I like the way Chitbhanu talked about the changing needs and therefore how that's changed the way we think about L&D in this environment. in your mind, therefore, I mean, and obviously, feel free to share the way you want to structure your thoughts and experience over the last 1 year. But maybe also talking a little bit about, therefore, are we measuring the right things when it comes to what we need to deliver in terms of learning to our people? So the needs are changing, the way we're delivering it is changing. So do we need to change our metrics? And probably touch upon also the point. Chitbhanu also mentioned it. We're in a 24/7 almost. We're on Zoom and Teams and whichever platform we're using. So we're almost always on. So therefore, there's an element of, when I was in the office, my supervisor or team manager didn't know when I'd taken a water cooler break. I'd stepped out for an oxygen break, as people call it, or I'd gone for coffee. Today, everyone knows that, Sunit's offline, so what's he up to, right? So there's a little element of the office has come into my home. So about my own privacy, including data privacy for that matter. So maybe touch upon a couple of those points, Ashish, as you share with us your thoughts.
So thanks a lot, Sunit. And I think much have been said by our fellow colleagues here, panelists here. So Sunit, there are two things which, one thing is very important during the pandemic time, and all of us didn't know how to react about it. And all of us were, including all of us and the whoever is attending the webinar, the conference, all of us are worried about our own well-being first. That are we first going to survive this COVID? Are we going to survive with the job? And there are two biggest uncertainty all of us carried in our mind, where irrespective of whether you were a shareholder, whether you are a senior management, you are a CXO, middle manager, junior manager, everyone was going through the same phase, and the world was at an equal level field to that extent. Just to cut the story short, and we realized that in the first 25, 30 days or 2 weeks, 3 weeks itself, we realized that there is huge amount of uncertainty which is there in everybody's mind. And how do we cut this uncertainty in that? So what we did is that we announced in the company is that because of pandemic, nobody is going to lose job, and nobody will have adverse effect because of pandemic till this financial year ends. After that, what happens, we didn't know. So that was a big one which we did, and which took out all the uncertainty from everybody's mind, and that's where the ball start rolling. Given the scenario of that, and I'll come back to the learning need, what we did and how the metrics changed. We at a SAR Group is a multi-dimensional business. It's in a battery power storage and consumer appliance, electric vehicle, B2B e-commerce, etc. Our all businesses have been growing around 30-40% CAGR over last few years. This year itself, we are growing with the same pace. So we haven't taken any hit in the business, and that's the single reason where when the category has grown by 3%, we have grown by 40% in the market share. In the growth from the last year, because we build a purpose at that point in time. Instead of, look, the reality is that you can't go out, but the reality is also that there is a consumer sentiment, there's a need to fulfill. So there will be somebody will be passive. So what's your need? Is that your insecurity about your losing job, or you're having an adverse impact on your profession has been taken away completely, so that you rest, you be in peace. First of all, that brought a lot of sense of ownership and passion in the organization, because look, and we said that whatever delta or whatever hit has to be taken, the hit will be taken by the shareholder, not by the employees. That's number one principle. That brought a lot of sense of, and that made our life much simpler to bring in a lot of things in that. In fact, one of the largest change management programs we launched online, and classically, if you look at, it's a very large sales and distribution organization with a multi-geography. If you do any change management within the sales process, etc., we launched the biggest change management program in sales and distribution called Nai Disha, and it was completely done online. In my 20 years of an experience with all large FMCG financial institutions, I had never come across any implementation which was done online, and with the lowest strata of the employee. So we just changed the method of communication. So what we did is, instead of, we realized, 8 hours, it's very difficult for you to consume. So we just broke it into 2 hours of 4 sessions, etc. We kept giving them a lot of, and whichever method people wanted to consume, we gave the information. So if you had to give a snippet, we gave the snippets on WhatsApp. You wanted on our own platform, we gave it on our platform. So in that sense, we used all methods to communicate, and we didn't actually think that which method will be useful, which method will not be useful. If you think telephone communication is more in a group of 10 people, if they want to be understood in voice manner, we actually facilitated that. So we tailor-made everything to suit the need in that. I just give you an example, and that resulted into success. There's some of these learnings which I carry, Sunit, I think going to stay forever. The classical way of looking at things is that, your training has to happen within 8 hours. This is the only format which will open. I think we got to be open about open source learning platform and a closed door learning platform in a very small snippets. And you will have to, so this is all consumerization of the training program. So we will have to make it like consumer. So if you launch a product in the market, if you launch a shampoo in the market, basically you do a good packaging. You see, okay, you want a 1 rupee sachet, 5 gram sachet, I'll give you 5 gram. You want 100 ml, I'll give you 100 ml. I think learning has to also go through this phase, and that's where the whole learning function has to change. And I can see some changes happening, and it's not that people are not adapting to it. In the other aspect is that people can be only dealt with people. They can't be dealt with robots and the machines. So human interaction will be important. I'll just to give you an example. We opened our office in October. We said that we will only open the office in 3 days in a week: Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Whosoever wants to come and meet people can come. There is no restriction or there is no force on anyone to come here. The heightened excessive use of Zoom and MS Team platform was there for first 2 months. Later on, we realized that it actually work happens without being obsessively being present. And I think one of the reasons why we could do that is that we just took out the uncertainty from mind. So everybody was focused on how do we survive and how do we capture the market share in the market. That's the only. Unfortunately, we are not in the hospitality sector. We are not in the hotel industry, which was adversely impacted by the COVID. So that's long and short of the entire story. I mean, I hope it helps.
No, absolutely, Ashish. And I think the point I'm looking at that, giving that sense of psychological safety right up front helped, because you can't get people to learn and do the massive, like for instance the change management program that you launched with the Salesforce, if they were worried about their jobs. And I think the other part I liked is that we ourselves as a learning function, as a fraternity, have to change, because we may have been thinking about these things, but the COVID situation accelerated that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll ask you to share thoughts on some of that, and then I'll come back to Chitbhanu and Karanjeet, which is the fact that therefore going forward, we've been in a way reflecting so far, and I'm just doing a quick time check. I think we are kind of halfway through our session. We've been doing a little bit of a back view mirror in the reflecting on the past and what's it been like. As you look forward, Ashish, as you look at what are you telling your L&D teams in the organization? How are you looking at, therefore, what is it that you need to focus on? What should they spend time on? I mean, one of the thoughts, and one of the colleagues I was talking to in the KPMG context was the fact that how, if we continue to remain socially dispersed, and a lot of organizations are saying that, look, we may not come back to the 100% in office model. Remote working, a hybrid model, working from anywhere may remain. So therefore, our role as potentially, how do you really onboard new joiners? How do you really get people to understand the culture, the values of the place? All of that, how does that work out? So some crystal ball gazing, Ashish, in terms of how you're looking at the next 18 months to 2 years from a learning agenda perspective.
I can actually share some live example. Actually, during the pandemic, we onboarded 3 CXOs. And all 3 interviews also happened virtually at a CXO level, and we onboarded 3 CXOs. So it was a very different experience, to be very frank on that. I don't think so any one of us would have been comfortable in any other scenario, that until you don't know what suit somebody wears, what clothes somebody wears, how he or she talks, what's his body language, what's his motivation, etc. I mean, you have to do that judgment over a screen. whatever number of hours you can only see part of your body. You can't ask someone to stand up. You would like to see you. And similar goes in the induction, because induction is actually, if you look at, is a familiarization process and making both the parties equally comfortable with each other. And we may not realize, and I keep saying that, is that joining in a company is a 50% risk for an employee and a 50% risk for an employer both, because both the parties actually placing a bet on each other. And when you place a bet on each other, many times as an employee, and all of us are an employee, we don't realize that the organization is also at a risk by hiring you, because they're investing resource, time, effort, etc., everything, and in anticipation that you will deliver something meaningful for the shareholders at the end of the day. And so the induction process, the way it happened, is and I can share, is that it was a little tough at the beginning, is to get the people in that group. But what I have realized over a period of time, see, look, this hybrid model, even if remain, but I don't think so any employee who is working from home will be 100% physically be distant from managers meeting. Today, there is a restrictions of managers not meeting. But even if you look at a classical work from home, many firms have, at some point in time, you do have a human interaction. What will change, Sunit, and I'm sure from your previous Accenture and the other experience I'm sure you can carry, is that the interaction level from the manager, it's not necessary that you see everybody on an 8-hour basis. That's the biggest learning all of us carry. As long as your purpose is, so what will change? And as long as your purpose is and the organization, and your tasks cut out very well down, maybe you'll have a frequency of meeting with the managers, and there will be social interaction besides the work, which will bond the people together. And that's what happens on the coffee table discussions, or etc. I think that will happen. Now, coming back to specific to induction, you may get inducted virtually for sure, but some physical interaction will need. Otherwise, we will create an organization which is isolated completely. There are companies which has taken bold decisions around it. I think we'll have to wait and see how it works. I'm frankly not too gung-ho about that it can work virtually, but then we are going back to the antithesis of the human mankind and the psychological need of human interaction. There, it's possible your 30 days first interaction can have a virtual induction, but in some 90 days, 180 days, you will have interactions with your line managers and organization. And I think the hybrid model will only operate. I don't think so it's 100% virtual induction is going to operate, is my sense.
No, fair point, Ashish. I mean, you're right. I mean, we all are social learners. We're social animals, as if people say. So it's going to be virtually impossible to always to sustain this, and there's some amount of uncertainty, I would say. So given the uncertainty, and Karanjeet, I'll come back to you. Some reflections, thoughts as you look ahead. How should, and probably also for the benefit of people listening in to our talk today, to our session today, how should L&D functions and L&D professionals think differently? There are some learnings that we've had to do perforce, and you touched upon those. I love the point about the fact that don't seek perfection. You won't get everything right. Try to get some things right and learn from them. What would your recommendation be to L&D functions and L&D professionals in terms of now, given the uncertainty? Ashish mentioned that we don't know how exactly things will unfold. What should they be thinking of when it comes to how do I look at learning needs? How do I look at my strategy? What is it? Where do I invest?
Sure. So, and it's a very important point also. Thank you for raising, Sunit. The coming set of 9 to 12 months will be equally tough, if not tougher. We must be mentally prepared for that. We've just come out of a negative GDP as a country in terms of domestic consumption. We are sitting at positive 0.4. We should be grateful and thankful for that. This is the macroeconomic context. At a business level, the business priorities and the models will also undergo change to address the changing requirements of the setups. for an L&D professional, understanding where is the change happening, and more importantly, why is the change happening is very important. Because when a business transforms itself, the business may not get enough time to communicate so quickly with all the stakeholders. So the key thing is to have a very robust partnership with all the stakeholders, to understand how is the need changing. And as we speak, the needs are still changing. We all are driven by targets, by objectives and everything. My recommendation is, please do not be surprised if the targets or recommendations change overnight. That's the world we live in. Every industry is going through a startup phase, even though an industry might not be in a startup phase or might not be called a startup, might not be in Series A or Series B of funding, they might be well beyond Series C and henceforth. What is more important is, how do you see the change? How do you respond to the change? From your heart or from your mind? And how do you react to the change? These are things which employees usually look up to the L&D team to say that everything has changed overnight. How is the L&D practitioner going to help me, to support me in my journey to perform? So a lot depends on how does the change imbibe by itself within the L&D practitioner. So let the targets change, let the strategy change. It is all going to change. It's a given, right? How do you handhold people? And more importantly, how do you handhold yourself? The emotional state has to be balanced with the mind, saying that now this is what I want to drive. So in the next 9 to 12 months, the hybrid model, it's all a function of responding to the environmental changes. Tomorrow an employee comes and says, and this has happened to us in the last 3 months, that I really cannot work through the internet. I need to physically go and meet up with people because that is what my DNA is all about, right? So wearing a mask and sanitizing hands, everything, that's a given. Everybody does that, right? But how do you attune to that mindset saying that if you are open to change, but don't expose yourself to risk? Because when one person moves out, you are exposing not yourself, but others, also known as customers, to you. So to balance it out is very important. So we are facing situations now wherein we don't want to be comfortable in a current state, because this current state is not going to last for long. And the demands from the stakeholders, especially the investors, are really going high. I mean, if you look at the quantum of investments that India is receiving from through FII is immense, which talks about a lot of scope for the Indian set of businesses or MNCs also operating in India. So how do you respond to that? Pressures are very high. From an L&D point of view, every business is looking at L&D specifically saying, I have this requirement, I am onboarding you as an L&D. Now you figure out how you want to do it to the workforce. You need anything, please come back and tell me. I have faith in your entire structure, team and setup. Now it is for the L&D team to give and reciprocate that faith and hope. So L&D has to partner with the business, with the customer, has to understand the financial impact of each and every action. Gone are the days of saying that I have done this L&D program. Gone are the days of just saying that this is my pre and post analysis. In are the days where L&D says, I have done, let's say, 2 hours of structured engagement across a span of 5 working days. Let it be 20 minutes or 25 minutes per day, however the breakup is. With this is how the needle is moving for the business and for the customer. So the business must see this. That's very important. So I'm not talking about tom-tomming or bragging about your own self. What is more important is for the business to feel it. The business will automatically see it in its results. So whether it is customer metrics, and by the way, customer metrics are the most influential metrics, whether it is through Facebook or through any other social media channel, which nobody can manipulate it so easily on a relative basis. Therefore, when the business gets the comfort that these are the only 3 things which L&D does, so keeping it simple, right? Driving it in an accountable manner, And more importantly, third one is how open and transparent the team is. So if I don't know anything as a L&D practitioner, I just go to the business and say, I have this issue. This is what is coming in my mind. Is this the complete set of looking at the solutioning, or is there something more to it? This is where the business says, okay, here is somebody who's trying to be open about it. Maybe he's got 2 or 3 box tick mark. He needs help in another 3 to 4 tick mark. So can somebody from, let's say, for example, a supply chain or a finance help him out? Because L&D is no longer L&D per se. It is about the entire business. In fact, in one of the L&D programs, one of our middle management employees came back and said, I do not know how to negotiate with so and so people. Can you guys help me out? So is he referring to a negotiation skill, or is he referring to the business aspect of negotiation? It took us a 3-hour conversation through a similar medium to figure out what is the person talking about. The guy is an expert in negotiation, because that is where the person has spent 18 years reaching to that level. Now, to understand the nuances, we had to partner with a very different team for the first time called, let's say, legal. And nobody has a legal background. So when we got in touch with legal knew it everything in and out. So we said, okay, now how do we bring both of them at the same level? And that was an immense learning for us. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
An L&D guy who is connecting with the legal team for the business, arriving at a simple, platform. It's rather challenging to make things simple, but this is what happened. And the guy negotiated it. So today, L&D is not only being looked at least from our point of mind, is not only looked at as somebody to drive learning programs. It is looked at saying, can you help me to drive my own solution?
It's becoming more than just learning and development. I think great examples, Karanjeet. Thanks for the specificity. I think I need to move on in interest of time. But I think 2 takeaways. Learning teams themselves have to show that agility and maybe come out of their comfort zones. That's one takeaway. Second, a multidisciplinary approach. I mean, the example that you gave of negotiation skills. And I go back to what Akhil said in his address, in his opening remarks. I think very important for us to know the business intimately. But we can't sit in an ivory tower and say, oh, I'm a learning expert, you tell me about the business. We need to proactively be able to learn that business. I'm not going to do the customary closing thoughts myself. Chitbhanu, I'm going to put you on the spot to say that, okay, so therefore, how ready are we? As a L&D community, as data professionals, and in context of India, Karanjeet talked about the fact that growth is coming back. It was 0.4%. Because it was a low base, people are saying it's going to be 11-13%. So clearly there's going to be a lot of demand, and maybe it's not just L&D. Today, all of us are having to help the organization prepare the workforce for managing this growth, or managing and again, in the midst of all this uncertainty. How ready are we? And if we are not ready, what are some 2 or 3 mantras you'd like to tell the audience today in terms of how to get ready? Chitbhanu.
Sure, Sunit. And I just wanted to, before I share my closing remarks, I wanted to very quickly go back to one of the points that Ashish made. I think there's an important message for the entire community, not just the L&D fraternity, not just the people practitioners, but even the business leaders. I think the conviction with which the organization was able to go back to people and give them the assurance that you will not face the brunt, at least in the immediate future. I can imagine the amount of comfort that must have given. And I think this is another way of attacking the problem at its core, not at the surface. So my heartfelt thanks for passing on this message, and for me as well, the realization that attack the problem at its core, see what's most important for people and solve that first. So thanks for that. And moving on from there, Sunit, I honestly think it's a journey. And the industry cuts across such length and breadth. I do not know if I even have enough visibility to say how ready are we as a community or as an industry. But I think it would be safe to say that, we have progressed and we are somewhere in between. And some of my own learnings and what I can pass on as suggestions are, I think, as follows. I think, first of all, the entire learning and development journey has to be a lot more partnership driven between the people and the L&D practitioners. And why am I saying that? I think it's a lot more important for us to get that buy-in, given that we have paucity of time, we have paucity of patience, and I think there is tremendous anxiety all over. So we need to get a lot more buy-in from our audience on what learning needs are we addressing? How are those learning needs connected with the business deliverables that they are themselves committed to? And hence, can we ruthlessly prioritize that rather than having a very broad learning curriculum, here are very few, strains that we will focus on, and we will deliver excellent content and excellent programs around it. So not just doing that, but I think having an equal partnership from our customer groups, from our people who are audience to these programs are very, very important. Second important thing that comes to my mind is I think content is king. And this is being realized a lot more in current time. There has always been anxiety and some mixed emotions around the quality of trainings that get delivered by and large. And I think that gets significantly more highlighted in current times. We cannot today afford to have anything which is suboptimal because we anyways have so few opportunities. So for us as a community and as a team, to doubly be reassured and review the quality of content and only go for the best, even if it means we have to spend X times more, is a lot more important. And I think the last piece that I want to touch here is the angle of technology. I think today there are a lot of platforms, there are a lot of tools and solutions available, but how do we stitch these platforms together? And how do we give a seamless learning experience across the life cycle to our employees plays a significant amount of role on what's the overall satisfaction and the ROI levels. So I think a lot more effort is needed in stitching this together and giving our people one seamless integrated experience through the process. I'm sure there are a lot many more points, but right now these are 2 or 3 important things from some of my recent experiences that come to mind, Sunit. But overall, I think with optimism, with resilience, we will come a lot more successful out of this journey. That I am absolutely sure of.
Absolutely, Chitbhanu, very succinctly put. Very, very, very pertinent points, and I think I'm sure the audience listening in, our colleagues listening in, will benefit from those. I just want to thank all of you. Clearly, while the pandemic had its social, economic, health impact, it has given us a lot of food for thought and a lot of learnings, and some which will go into the future. And clearly, the exciting thing I personally feel, picking up strands from all what 3 of you said, is the fact that today we don't have any excuse to say that we are not going to deliver. I think we have all the content, we have all the delivery platforms, and today the business is actually pulling us to come on this planning table and sit there as a trusted advisor to really shape the future with them. So thank you very much. It's exciting times ahead. I'll probably close the session with those remarks. Thank you so much, Ashish, Chitbhanu, and Karanjeet. It's been lovely, hearing your thoughts. And over to you, Khyati. Thank you.